All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining Language Links. We're going to be talking today about building relationship skills. We're going to talk in a minute about why we're talking about relationships in Language Links. There's a reason. But before we get started, I also want to mention one thing, that as I'm talking today, I'm going to refer to people with autism in two ways. I'm going to refer to them as a person with autism, and I'm also going to refer to them as an autistic person. And that's something that, traditionally we stayed away from. We always referred to a person with any type of challenge as a person with a learning disability, a person with autism, because it's the person first language. But the autistic community has spoken up, and they have shared with us that autism is part of their identity. It's part of who they are, and they feel pride in who they are, and they should. So they prefer to be called an autistic person. So I'm going to refer to both because I want to be respectful of everyone. So I just wanted to put that out there for everyone to hear. For those of you who may not be familiar with CARD, CARD seeks to provide support and assistance with the goal of optimizing the potential of people with autism, dual sensory impairment, and related disabilities. We have our main office at the University of Miami, and we have a satellite office in Davie at Nova Southeastern University. We're located in the speech language pathology building, and we have branch offices in Miami Lakes and Miramar. CARD is located only throughout the state of Florida, and you'll see us at all the major universities. We provide many different services. At the top of our list is individual family support services. And that is what we provide to many of you who are on this call. If you're a parent, a grandparent, a family member, where we help you find the help that you need for your child. We also provide parent and professional education and consultation services, where we provide training. We also provide training and program consultation to in the form of technical assistance to various programs, schools, therapy providers in our community, as well as employers. We have adult and transition services. We offer community outreach and public awareness activities, and we also participate in various research opportunities. I'm going to show you right now, this is our website. And if you go to this website and you click on this little contact us over here, you can register with us if you're not already registered. And then if you click on community outreach, you can get our weekly newsletter where you can find so much information about the various community activities that we're participating in, that you can participate in, various trainings that are coming up, different events. I would highly recommend that you sign up for our newsletter. We also have an upcoming, I can't believe, our 30th annual CARD conference. It takes place in Orlando every year. So it's not that far. You don't have to get onto an airplane. It's a really great opportunity to meet people from our autistic community, to learn from others, from professionals, from parents, from people with autism. Great opportunity. I encourage you to take a look at that. All right, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what a relationship is. And it's a little bit of a tricky term because a relationship, the word relationship, the concept of a relationship is very subjective, right? What a relationship is to me is different to another person. And we have various kinds of relationships. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the challenges experienced by autistic people when developing relationships, and we're going to talk about how you can help. Now, notice my language. I said how you can help. So, some of the strategies that we're going to talk about today are relating to things that the person with autism needs to learn. But what I'm mostly talking about today is what we need to learn. Strategies that we need to incorporate into our practice so that we can help people with autism, our children of any age, develop meaningful relationships, whether it be with a family member, with someone they work with someone at school, a neighbor, etc. Okay. And why are we talking about relationship building in language links? Well, relationships develop in the context of language. And so it seems very appropriate to me to discuss how to build relationships, how to promote relationship building in the context of learning language. We need specific language to be able to communicate. We need to use certain language to be able to build relationships. So I think it's very appropriate to talk about relationship building in our language links group. And I hope that in addition to relationship building, you also think about the language building that's required to build relationships. And we'll talk a little bit about that after. This is something I've heard many times, and this is a phone call I get frequently. My son doesn't have many friends. When their cousin comes over, my child stays in their room. My daughter's friends get frustrated with her. My high school age son told me that they want to have someone to make plans with. When we visited Grammy and Pops last weekend, he didn't want to talk to them. How can I help them make and keep friends? I don't want her to feel lonely. Right? So those are things that I hear often. I get a phone call about. And so that is one reason why I felt, in addition to talking about the language about relationships, that I felt that it's important to address how can we support our kids so that they can build those relationships that they want, that feel good to them. How can we think about the concept of a relationship so that it meets our child's needs, not our own? And how can we get this done? So first, let's talk about what a relationship is. In a relationship, we share emotional experiences, interests, activities with another person. Typically in a relationship or a friendship, we help each other, we comfort each other. Usually when people share a relationship, they share maybe a culture or a common history. Maybe it's a family history. Maybe it's a history in a specific community. Relationships usually fill us with some happiness and joy. They give us a sense of belonging. Usually in relationships, we feel accepted without judgment in healthy relationships. And we have many different kinds of relationships, right? I mean, I have a relationship with the person who delivers my mail, right? When she drives by, I always stop and, hey, how are you? How's your family? And so we have a relationship, but I have a different kind of relationship with Dr. Zangari, who's in this Zoom room. She's my colleague, my mentor, my close friend. I have a different relationship with some of you who are on this call, families who I help support, and we've developed relationships. I have a different kind of relationship with my husband, with my kids, with a doctor, with a neighbor. So we have various kinds of relationships. and so do our children. Why are relationships so important? Well, first of all, we know this is evidence-based that relationships build healthy lifestyles. Relationships support healthy cardiovascular systems, emotional health, healthy immune systems, cognitive health, healthy sleep, how we respond to stress, longevity. We know that people who have meaningful relationships in their lives live longer. We also know that relationships offer opportunities, that based on the different relationships that we have, we might have different jobs. We might be offered different opportunities to get out into the community. We might have opportunities to meet other people. We might have opportunities, maybe for a living situation, a place to live. So our relationships lead us to many different routes in our lives. Relationships open up opportunities for us. And relationships also, in some cases, make things more simple. We have people to support us and help us. I can't pick up my son today from his after-school activity. So who did I call? I called my best friend who has children who are of similar ages. And I said, hey, I'm stuck. Can you help me? And she's going to pick up my son. So relationships can also make problems a little more simple, right? We have a support system. So clearly relationships are important, right? In the past and still currently, I hear things like, she wants to be alone. He doesn't want friends. They prefer to play in solitude. He's uncomfortable around people. So, he really doesn't want to be around people. Now, for certain individuals with autism, that is true. But for many others, that's just an assumption. It may appear that way, but that's just an assumption. And if we allow this assumption to guide our behavior, our actions, our support, we're creating a significant barrier for people with autism. When we assume that people with autism are uninterested, are not interested in being friends with other people, in developing relationships, just because they might look uninterested, we're creating a barrier that causes a breakdown that prevents relationships from taking place. Looking uninterested is not the same as uninterested. And so going into this, I want to encourage you to keep an open mind so that you are not making assumptions about what an autistic person is thinking and feeling or wanting. There was a peer review of some research that was done. It was compiled in an article called How People with Autism Forge Friendships. And the author, Lydia Denworth, included some interviews of autistic adults who shared their experiences with relationship building. And these were some things that this research showed us and taught us. First of all, these individuals with autism expressed that generally people with autism do want friends. They do seek relationships. They also said that they do have friends, many of them, but it tends to be a small support system. That doesn't necessarily mean bad. That's just because it's smaller doesn't mean it's not good. I have a small group of friends. I prefer it that way. Everyone has a different way of socializing and engaging. That's okay. But for research purposes, it was reported many autistic people do have friends, and they tend to be smaller support systems. They also told us that their manner of interaction can sometimes look different, but they do have the ability to form friendships and relationships, and they do. They may not look lonely because it's sometimes more comfortable to be alone. Like it may look like they prefer to be alone, but they did report that they can feel lonely, and sometimes they do. Loneliness can lead to depression and anxiety. They also reported that sometimes it's easier for autistic people to be friends with other autistic people. And we'll talk more about that. But that's a really interesting concept to think about, because in a minute, we're going to talk about the fact that one very helpful strategy to build relationships is to help our child find their pack, no matter how old they are. And so if a person with autism, it can develop relationships with other people who have autism, who have similar interests, are maybe more predictable, they can understand each other, they can respect each other's needs. This might be a good way to build relationships. The other thing they reported is that us, need to help them find relationships and build relationships. We need to help them find those opportunities and help them build. So I thought that this was really valuable information that the research has taught us, and it's something very important for us to take into consideration as we're supporting our kids. These are some of the challenges that they expressed in regards to building relationships. Very often, people with autism have an elevated level of anxiety. So when they have an elevated level of anxiety, we can see shutdowns, we can see rigid behavior, some obsessive compulsive behavior, etc., inflexibility. And this will obviously shut down a situation where people are socializing or engaging. And so we need to be aware of this challenge. People with autism often have difficulty expressing their anxiety. They also tell us that change can be stressful. And when things are stressful, they will not be able to engage. Visitors in their space can be stressful. And when we're talking about relationship building, we often have another person in our space, whether it's out in public, in our home, in our workplace, but we have someone close by that we're engaging with, and that can cause a lot of stress for a person with autism. They also reported the challenge of being bullied and report that in the past they had been made fun of. This has an impact on relationship building. They may have difficulty understanding how their reactions and behaviors affect other people. And that is related to theory of mind and challenges with theory of mind, being able to predict what other people might think in a given situation. And those thoughts that other people could have could be different from our own. That's theory of mind. And in order to engage with other people, we have to have a certain sense of understanding of what other people are thinking, how they might react in a given situation. They also might have that rigid thinking that prevents them from compromising. And we all know that in relationships, we need to compromise a little bit. So this has an impact on relationship building. Conflicts can be difficult to resolve and recover from, and this can be more challenging for autistic females. They report a lack of self-confidence. They report that sometimes they may over-focus on something that happened in the past in regard to engaging with other people, and they might get stuck on that. And they also report having difficulty with language and communication skills, and that involves talking verbally, but also nonverbal language. And so again, that language does affect relationship building. So we need to take that challenge into consideration. So let's go back to this question. How can you help? And for anyone who may have come in after I mentioned this question puts the onus on you. It puts the responsibility, the ownership on all of us, not the person with autism. Now, of course, we will talk about things that we need to teach the individual with autism. But today is about you and the skills that we need to teach other people around the person with autism, and the things that we need to learn to better support the person with autism. So the first thing that we can do is help them find their pack. What does that mean? That means finding their people. All right. When my oldest son left for college, his first year was a little bit rough because it took him a lot of time to find his pack. But once he found his pack, the people who were like-minded, he felt pretty good. He felt pretty good. And so we have to help our kids find their pack. They can develop friendships with other people on the spectrum. And interactions and behaviors, the interactions with and the behaviors of people in their pack will be more predictable, which is more calming, which leaves room for interaction and engagement. People in our pack we have a mutual understanding, mutual respect. And if you think about all of us, we probably all are friends with people in our pack, like we have found our pack. Most of my closest friends are educators, speech therapists, occupational therapists. Of course, I have some who are not, but these are my passions in my life. And so I tend to be very close with other people who are like-minded. All right. So we have to give this to our kids as well. So I just love this little story. And this was in that article that I told you about called How People with Autism Forge Friendships by Lydia Denworth. And so this gentleman, Matt Lerner, founded Spotlight Camp, which is a camp or was a camp for campers with autism. And so this is what it said. On the second or third day of camp, an 11-year-old boy ran up and tugged on Matt Lerner's sleeve. Matt, where did you find these kids? Lerner recalls him asking. All over the place, Lerner answered. Everyone wants to come to camp just like you. The boy turned to Lerner and said, "This is the first normal group of kids I have ever met." And I just love that because this little boy, Matt, found his pack and he felt comfort. He found people who were interested in the same things he was interested in and who thought the same way. And he was able to develop a mutual understanding with the other kids in his pack. The other thing I want to talk about is, can we think about relationships in a different way? And this one is a question because I don't know all the answers to this one, but I do know that I feel that we do need to think about the concept of relationships and relationships for individuals with autism in a different way, because what we consider to be a relationship could be different for them. And our standards for a relationship is one thing, and we shouldn't impose those standards that we hold for ourselves and our relationships for our child or for an individual with autism. Relationships, I feel, come in many forms, happen in many ways, look very differently for various people. And so I think that we really need to move to a space where we respect that. And as we're thinking about our children, and of course, we don't want them to be lonely. And we don't want to make any assumptions about the fact that they may not want friends. We don't want to assume that they don't want friends. We should assume that maybe it's hard for them to engage, and that they need our help. And we need to think about our standards, and are there different standards of a relationship that could apply to our child and fill them up in the same way that our relationships fill us up with. This is another quote from this article. This psychologist said, "I don't think putting a neurotypical standard of friendships as the standard that autistic people should be made to achieve would do anything positive at all, and would probably be very negative." And so again, I encourage all of you to think about those standards. And I don't know the answer to this question. Like, how can we think about relationships differently? But I know we have to. I know we have to start to think about it differently so that we can serve our kids better. We can also teach peers and family members some helpful strategies. We can teach them that it may be hard to get the person with autism's attention, but we have to keep trying. Let's persist. We can invite them and always be inclusive. We need to teach patience and kindness, right? We need to teach inclusion. We need to make sure that our friend with autism understands what's going on, understands directions, understands the activity, so that they can participate. Because if they can't participate, they're isolated and they may want to participate. So we need to make sure they understand. We can also help our friend with autism or family member if they're sensitive to certain sensory feelings. And we're going to talk more about that coming up a bit later. Always advocate for your friend. Absolutely crucial. This goes back to being inclusive, being patient and kind, and always be their protector. We also need to teach peers and family members to ask an adult or a family member for help. So if we get stuck and we don't know how to engage with the person with autism, let's ask someone who does have a relationship with them, parents, siblings, therapists, and get some help from them. Let's get some guidance. And always make it fun. We all want to engage with others when things are humorous, fun, light. That pulls people in. And so very often when I do get that call from the parent who says, "My child is lonely, no one wants to play with her," we'll talk about how we can create a really fun play date, and how, maybe you can invite the peer over, give the peer a little pep talk, like a couple of things that the peer can do to support your child, and make it really fun by maybe go to the dollar store and get some like novel, fun activities that they can do. Do some really fun things that are not everyday get-together activities. Make it fun. In order to build relationships, we also need to use special interests. Again, this goes back to finding your pack, right? Learn about your friends' special interests. You'll pull them in to the relationship. We can't force friendships to take place, but we can use those special interests to help a friendship or relationship develop. Again, it pulls them in. And when we engage around a topic that is of passionate interest to the person with autism, they might feel less anxiety because they're talking about something that's interesting to them and very predictable to them. You can also find your pack or their pack in a group or a club that fosters their special interest. So when a parent calls me and says their child is really into Minecraft, that's their total special interest, passion, everything revolves around Minecraft, I encourage them to find a Minecraft club or some kind of after school group. Sometimes our public library offers stuff like that. And if it doesn't exist, create it. Create that environment, that context in which the pack can thrive and share a special interest, because that's where relationships will be built. What if my autistic friend or family member gets stuck on a topic? This is important for us to discuss because, again, this goes back to how can we help the individual with autism develop a relationship? And sometimes the person with autism gets stuck on a specific topic and they don't want to deviate from it. And that causes a breakdown in the interaction, which then often causes a breakdown in the relationship. So when that happens, and you can teach a peer to do this, you can teach grandma to do this, we can gently ask, what were we talking about again? You can remind them by asking that question. You may have to be a little more direct and bring up the topic. Oh, I think that we were talking about summer camp, not Minecraft. Or you can also summarize the dialogue around what you were talking about and then persist. So you might remind them and say, I think we were talking about summer camp and you said that your favorite activities were swimming, art, and I think you are just about to get to the next one. Do you want to tell me what your next favorite activity was, or should I take a turn and tell you about my summer camp? We have to persist. Now, kids' peers need training to do this. We need to support them through this. Then we also sometimes have to be like really direct and say, I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk about Minecraft anymore. Do you want to talk about summer camp, or do you want to talk about school or the movie you saw this weekend? Give them a choice. Okay. So these are strategies to help our children or adult children or family members become unstuck on a topic. What if my autistic friend or family member crosses a boundary? This is another problem that happens that causes a relationship or friendship breakdown. And so it is important to know some strategies. For one, we can directly explain what you can explain directly what you need. So you can say something like, you're too close to me. Can you please stand this far from me and put out your arm to show an arm's length? And then you can say, that helps, thanks. So you're being, direct, and you're showing with your arm the visual space. You can also directly say something like, please don't touch my hair. And it's okay to be direct. There's a kind way to be direct. We also need to describe, for boundary purposes, for example, who we hug, who we don't hug, how often. All right. This is a big one, a big boundary breaker. And sometimes, kids are huggers when they're in kindergarten and first grade, but in sixth grade, it's not as cute when they hug, and peers don't want to be hugged in the hallway in middle school. So we have to begin to teach those boundaries directly, just like we teach math. Describe who we share personal information with and who we don't. That's another boundary that sometimes is crossed that make people feel uncomfortable and causes a relationship breakdown. And then we can also just, give that direct feedback, about these boundaries and what they need to do, but we always want to do it respectfully. And that often requires us to do it in private. But I think that it is necessary to be direct, and we have to teach peers how to create those boundaries, how to be direct about it in a kind way, so that the boundaries don't get in the way of relationships. This is a nice visual way to show various boundaries. This is from a program called the Circles curriculum. And you can use this concept to teach various boundaries. My family, these are the people I can hug anytime. And my friends and relatives love hugs, but my friends don't love hugs at school. And my relatives, my cousins like hugs, but those hugs take place less than my family. These people that I see regularly, I might hug only when I haven't seen them in a long time. And so, you know, your circles don't have to say these things. You can create the circles any way you want, but you can use them to show those boundaries. My family, those are the people I can share my personal information with. My friends, I can share some personal information with, but not the private information. And people I see regularly, like at school or at work, you know, I can share just a few personal things, and you can even list in that circle what those things are so that we don't cross the boundary. You get the idea. What if my friend or family member needs help communicating? Again, communication, language is so important to help develop a relationship. Now, when I say language, that doesn't mean talking. It means communicating in any way that they can. And although I'm not going to get into each one of these examples, I want to give you an outline of how people can communicate if they're not talkers. How can they engage in a relationship if they are not talking? So they can use AAC and visual supports. They can use something like picture symbols. And this is an example of symbols that can cue them to say a comment, or cue them to ask a question, or to say, that's cool, or I don't like this. They can use manual signs to communicate. That's like sign language. They can use a tablet. They can use a smartphone. They can use text to speech. Now, text to speech is something interesting. I often speak to a young man with autism who, and we Zoom frequently, and occasionally he'll bring up something that's bothering him. And when he gets anxious and talks about something that's bothering him, sometimes he becomes very quiet. And I've realized that he has trouble finding his words when he gets anxious, sad, or angry. And so what I've started to do is I say to him, I can see you're sad about what happened with so-and-so. And I think it's hard for you to talk right now, right? Would it help you if you type in the chat box? And very often he'll choose to type until he calms down, and then he'll start speaking again. So sometimes even for talking people, having these alternative ways to communicate is very helpful. PECS is another form of AAC where we can make requests and build on some language. A communication board. This example here is a very simple communication board, and there are more complex boards where we can print boards with various symbols. And then we have speech generating devices, which you know, there's software on tablets, on iPads and other tablets, where the individual can press the symbols and the speech generating device will say what they want to communicate. So we have to figure out how we can support the individual with autism to communicate in some way, because without it, it's going to be difficult to maintain a relationship. We want to teach peers and family members to be patient and to let their friend or family member think about what you say to them and what they want to say to you. We have to give that wait time. We have to let them process. They're processing what you say, but then they're also thinking and gathering their words and organizing it so that they can say it or indicate what they're thinking. It helps to give them choices. So if they're having difficulty communicating with you, instead of the peer saying, what do you want to play? The peer might be trained by you to say, Do you want to play Legos or Candyland? Give them a choice. Pair your words with actions so that they comprehend what your words mean. We can teach our peers and family members to simplify their words if necessary. It's okay if a conversation is short. A conversation, I think by definition, is an exchange of just a few different, exchanges. And so it doesn't need to be this lengthy conversation. Short and sweet is good. And finally, we have to teach peers and family members that just because a person could be a non-talker doesn't mean that they don't have more advanced skills. Doesn't mean that they don't have thoughts inside their head that they want to share with us. So, again, we can't make assumptions. We need to respect the person with autism and assume that they do have a lot to say. We just haven't found the way to help them say it yet. What if my autistic friend or family member has sensory sensitivities? And we mentioned this before. And this is really important because if a person is not regulated in terms of their sensory system, there is absolutely not going to be any space in their brain to engage with other people. They won't be able to build a relationship if their sensory system is all over the place. So we need to be aware of what sensory feelings make the person with autism uncomfortable so that we can help them and protect them and support them in those situations. We may want to think about how certain locations might affect their sensory needs. I used to have a student who, whenever we walked into the cafeteria, he would put his hands over his nose and mouth because the smells were horrendous to him. His sensory system could not cope with all of the smells from all the food around him in the cafeteria. Not only that, but the noise in the cafeteria was absolutely painful for him. And so he didn't know what to do first. Put his hands over his nose and mouth or put his hands over his ear. He didn't know what to do. And very often he would throw up because of the smell and feeling overloaded in a sensory way. There was no way that this little boy was going to engage with other people at the lunch table. There was no relationship building in that situation. So if we can address sensory sensitivities and eliminate that distraction and make the person with autism feel comfortable, we can make room for relationship building. We need to think about, do we need a quiet place to play or hang out? Do we need an uncluttered place to hang out? And understand that your friend or family member may have difficulty focusing on that interaction if their sensory system is overwhelmed and dysregulated. And we can also teach peers and family members to ask the autistic person what they need. Is this too loud for you? Do you need to leave? It's okay to ask. And very often, they will tell us exactly what they need. So always ask your autistic friend or family member how you can help them. They will usually be able to tell us, whether it's by gestures or words. These are some skills that we can directly teach to an autistic person to help them interact. But I have to say that in order for people with autism to perform these skills, they need to perform them effectively and meaningfully. They have to have a certain level of social understanding. And that's that hidden curriculum that's very often difficult to teach. It's the stuff that we just pick up, that intuition that we develop about what other people are thinking in a given situation. I might know that I feel a certain way, but another person might feel a different way, depending on their life, depending on their circumstances. That might be difficult for a person with autism, imagining that someone else has thoughts that are different from their own. And so I think that it's very important to remember that in order to teach these social skills, how to share, how to ask a friend to play, how to maintain an interaction, how to interrupt appropriately, in order to know how to do that, we need to have a certain level of understanding of other people and be able to predict other people's thoughts and their behaviors. So, this list is way more extensive than this, but I still wanted to point out that sometimes that direct instruction is necessary. But we also need to consider the hidden curriculum so that we can teach social understanding. If you want more information about that, contact me, Google it, Google social thinking or hidden curriculum, and you'll find lots of information. I'm going to go through some other tools as well. I'm not going to go into detail, but I just want to present the idea to you so that you can look into it further if you think that this could help your child. So comic strip conversations were created by Carol Gray, who is the mother of social stories. We call them social narratives, and I'm going to show that to you in a minute. But this is a comic strip conversation, and it emphasizes what people are thinking and what people are saying. So in this first picture on the left, this person has autism, and this is what he is thinking. All the kids are talking together. I want to talk with them. So he goes to that group, and in the dialogue bubble, it says, "I'm wearing Star Wars underpants." And then these thought bubbles are used to teach him what they're thinking in their brain that's different from what's in his brain. This is really important to teach people with autism. So this person is thinking, I wish he wouldn't talk about underpants. I don't know what to say now. And this person is thinking, I don't like it when Jim interrupts. So comic strip conversations is a way to visually show a social context, a social situation, to show what people say and to show what people think, and to point out, to emphasize that everyone has different thoughts from our own. So those are comic strip conversations. And then we have social narratives. Some of you may know that as a social story. We call them social narratives. That's the general term, where we break certain social situations down to help a person with autism understand, so that relationships, in this case, I'll give you this example, can be maintained. The problem that's outlined in this social narrative can cause a relationship breakdown. So a social narrative in this case can help. I made this for a child a number of years ago. The title was, "It's okay to like different things," because the child with autism wanted everybody else to play only what he wanted, to talk about only what he wanted to talk about, to engage in only what he wanted to do. So the story said, I like to play with my friends. Sometimes my friends want to play something different from what I want to play. Every person likes to play different things. It's okay to like different things. Just because I like to play something does not mean my friend needs to like the same thing. And the story goes on and on. So it's many pages long, but this is just a sample. Each person has different ideas in their brain. The ideas I have in my brain are different from the ideas in other people's brains, and their ideas are different from mine. All my friends have different ideas of what they want to play. My friend may not like what I like to play because they have different ideas. You get the concept, okay? So those are social narratives. Another strategy we use to prevent relationship breakdowns are social autopsies. And that's when we do the research and do the breakdown of a problem that happened so that we can help teach about what caused a social breakdown. So in this case, what happened, the problem was, while the bus was moving, I got out of my seat to see a friend. The bus driver asked me to sit down. I told him he was dumb and that he couldn't make me sit down. This clearly would cause a relationship breakdown. So what was the social error and who was hurt by the social error? Not following the bus safety rules by getting out of my seat while the bus was moving, and I disrespected my bus driver by telling him he was dumb. What should be done to correct the error? What can I do better next time? Stay in my seat until the bus comes to a complete stop and apologize to the bus driver, and then go into what should be done next time. So that is called a social autopsy. We also use video modeling. As you can see here, this is an example of watching, well, this person is videoing a social scenario, but then we can watch that video to teach specific skills. And so one strategy we use is video modeling. And there are some apps out there that have ready-made video modeling videos. And there are also some nice ones on YouTube. You can Google it for many different things. So take a look at that. We can also use role playing to work on relationship building. And then finally, we can include peers and family members in therapy sessions. And this can be really helpful because we can learn from the professionals how to help the autistic person. And we can learn how to help under the guidance of a professional. And it's a safe, comfortable environment where the person with autism is getting the help they need and we're learning the skills. So that is also a very helpful strategy to build relationships. So before I open up the floor to questions and see if there are any questions in the chat box, let's just quickly sum up what we talked about today. Assumptions about relationships and what our kids want are not always helpful, and we need to try to avoid making assumptions. Relationships are very important, so important that they help us to be physiologically and emotionally healthier people. Relationship building strategies can be helpful in building those relationships, and we talked about a whole bunch of strategies today. And remember that the onus is on us. We have a responsibility in this. It's not just about teaching the autistic individual what they need to do. It's on us, a huge part of it. And finally, the concept of a relationship is subjective. And so let's not impose our definition of a relationship onto our children, okay? I'm going to open up the floor for questions in one moment. Before we do that, if you would please put your phone up to this QR code so that you can give us an evaluation for this training. That would be very helpful. Just hold your camera up to the QR code and it will take you to a drop-down list and just choose relationship building. It'll have it will probably say online or on Zoom 12 p.m. So if you would do that, that would be great.